Welcome to Art Share, the podcast for artists by artists, with your hosts, Brigid Ashwood, Ash Evans, and Mary Layton.
Welcome back. This is our second episode in another two-parter where we were talking about exposure, or as Ash was calling it, just art prostitution, really. Right? That was the prevailing.
No, even they charge, so I wouldn't even say it's that.
That's true, but that was the prevailing metaphor that we couldn't get away from last episode. Okay.
No, I would not let us.
That's fine,
I wanted to film the episode in us just wearing trench coats, so that people felt like. I think that would have been fun.
Turn all our viewers to stone, right?
Right. Chest up shots.
There we go. Oh no! Watch out if we show up in chest up towels on our heads on the next, just out of the shower. Nice. Actually, you and I literally were sort of just out of the shower.
I know, right?
Right, a little bit at this point, but. All right, so we're talking about exposure again, and if you didn't hear the first part of this, that was last week's episode, or 2 weeks ago. I don't know.
Yeah.
Check the dates, guys. It's whenever I put it up. Where we talked about what exposure is and why it's bad, and this week we're going to talk about the rare occasions when it can be good, and really, it's it's kind of something different entirely, because really when it can be good, it no longer qualifies as what we were defining as exposure, because exposure is really just being used and a situation where you're giving your art for free and you're not receiving anything in return. And so Ash was saying it's all about reciprocity.
It's a relationship. It's a relationship, and I think if it's an instance, it would be okay is if you're cultivating a relationship with something that would be beneficial to you. But I mean, it's a slippery slope, because even if you're doing it for a company, you're already saying, hey, I'll do this for free, but it gets tricky, and you have to be careful about navigating something like this. I always 100% say yes in most cases for things when it is a nonprofit organization that I believe in. Mm-hmm. Charitable giving is important to me, and I don't really feel like it's exposure when it's a nonprofit. I mean, before we were talking about for-profit companies that are making money off of your stuff. And I mean, designing a logo for an animal shelter or something they're like, oh, we'll give you credit. And I'm just like, okay, fine. Don't put the puppies to sleep. So, I think that is important. I think giving back to your community as an artist is important to do. But it has to be reciprocal, and there are ways to track if it's actually benefiting you too. I mean, with analytics and things the way that you are, you can see if this exposure is working. So if you didn't take our advice in the last episode and then decided to do it for free anyway, like we told you not to, first of all, I'm disappointed. Second of all, you can see if they were full of crap or not. You can see where your links are coming from and how your traffic is coming to your website or to your page. And go look and see if that exposure worked for you.
Right, that's true. You can use there's a pixel tracking you can use in Google Analytics and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. And you're probably already using a website that has that built in to some degree. So Google how to do it. But Mary had a story about working with a nonprofit. So even with a nonprofit, there's ways in which they can show their appreciation, and you can get reciprocity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was an animal charity, actually, and they were doing a little fundraiser, and in lieu of giving them a cash donation, I offered them
the ability to use this piece of artwork I actually did a special piece of artwork for them to use on their flyers and the little postcards they sent around to their supporters. And even though my copyright information and contact information were on every piece that went out, I did it mostly because I supported the charity, and this was my way of giving back, as Ash said. Mm-hmm. But they surprised me by actually sending a letter that put a dollar amount on what I had done for them, so that I could use it for my taxes. So I wound up getting back even more than just the good feeling of having done this because I support the charity.
Right.
So yeah, there are ways to do that. When it's a nonprofit, a lot of times you can get a tax break because you did this for charity.
Right. And they should do that. And that's what they would do for anybody else with a cash donation. If you put a cash value on what you did for them, then they can give you that piece of paperwork in return. Yeah. And then there's other opportunities, like I'm trying to think. Well, and I have permission to talk about this a little bit, and I think it's important because I was really blown away by this. So this year I got selected to be a Corel Painter Master, which was really, I know it sounds hokey, but like that was kind of a dream of mine. Ever since I started using the software, I just was like, I would see the other masters and was like, wow, they teach me so much. It's so cool. Maybe one day that'll be me. And, then I got selected, and that was pretty thrilling. So hopefully, I can share some of what I've learned about the program too. But that's definitely something I would have done just for the exposure. Absolutely. And I could quantify it. I could put a value, and if I had to, put a financial and monetary value on what I felt I would gain from it, I could have sat down and said the advertising from, being retweeted by a Corel Painter Twitter account. Okay. I could put a dollar amount value on that. The benefit to my career by being on their website as a Corel Painter Master. All that stuff alone, I probably would have just done it for that. And yeah, a little bit of the ego, as Ash was saying in the other episode, partly the status of it, that it was sort of a career marker, something for me that I just kind of wanted. Okay. So it had value. So I would have done it for free. But then what I found out is once you're notified that you've been selected, you have a contract and they lay it all out for you, and there are opportunities. So one of the things is that they'll come to you first if they need internal artwork, and it's a paid situation. It's not for free. It's not for the exposure. You'll get paid, and you don't have to take it, but they'll offer you this opportunity. What's more, we get paid a small amount beyond that. And I mean, it's not going to I'm not buying a summer home in the Bahamas, but just the fact that they even know how important that is, how very different from the Huffington Post's attitude. Mm-hmm. Right? I was so impressed by that. Really, I fully expected that their attitude as a company, because at this point in my career, I'm a little jaded from, frankly, experience. And I fully expected that their attitude was going to be, well, you should almost be paying us for this opportunity because the exposure is so good. But that wasn't Corel's attitude at all. Their attitude was, we value what you do with our program. We value that we consider you an expert at this program, and you are already giving to the community on that. And so we want to recognize that value with this official title, which is a kind of fun little status thing, but also we're going to pay you. I was blown away. And that's how it should be done. That's done right. So anyway, okay. I sound like an infomercial now. Hashtag Corel Painter, hashtag Corel Painter, hashtag Corel Painter. Sorry.
I'm sure that attitude comes from working so closely with artists, with developing the software and over the years and stuff too. And I think if you're not familiar with how the art world work or how artists work, it's a lot easier to take the road of, oh, well, it's exposure, we're doing you a favor, because you're not really informed on how things function. It is generally somebody on the outside of the industry, or on converse, it's either the people who have no idea or the people that really, really, really should know better. It's never like a middle of the road person. They're either ignorant or they're corrupt. It's one or the other, I have found in my experience. And I think that's how a lot of people get sucked in, because it's usually like some weaselly artist or something that like totally knows better. And you're like, oh, they're like us. They would never bend us over and just screw us. That would be, you know, they won't do that. They know better. Mm-hmm. It's usually them. It's like the cult leader mentality and sucked in to the exposure. But I just, the exposure is like the crystal meth of the art.
No, you're just touching on like,
it's an epidemic.
No, I'm just thinking about how at one point, like, we had all these situations like back to back, and one of our friends was like, what is it about frizzy haired blondes with tiny dogs? Because like seriously, in the sort of in the little like you know, every artistic community has its little pockets, its little tribes, and in the tribe that we kind of, you know, flow in, you know, there's circles, they overlap and whatever, but in the tribe that we were flowing in at the time, there were just like 3 people back to back, these just like, you know, cultish gurus that swept in and were going to save all the fantasy and fairy artists and, you know, give everybody these fabulous careers. And every last one of them had this really big, like, frizzy yellow hair and this little yappy dog, right? We were like, I don't know. It's kind of the apocalypse, you know. Three horsemen of the yappy dogs.
She said Stepford artists.
Oh yeah, the Stepford artists. So yeah, I mean, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. You know,
yes.
You're never going to get away from having to manage your career yourself.
Well, and the thing that people don't realize is the only person that's ever going to have your best interest at heart 100% is you. Right. No one else is going to care, because even in these exposure situations, it's to help them. It's benefiting them. And if it benefits them to throw you in front of the bus or cut your rope when you're dangling off of Everest, that's what's going to happen. You have to think about, when these opportunities are being presented to you, what their motivations really are. How is it benefiting them? Because they're not contacting you just to be charitable. People don't run businesses doing everybody a favor and being everybody's buddy.
Right. They're just trying to get something done, check, a box off on their list. And even the people who aren't necessarily actively trying to screw you, okay, most of them aren't, what is it that's saying, like, never assign evil when just incompetence will do, or just, I would say also apathy, it's not that they're necessarily trying to be evil and harm you or anything. They just don't care. It's just not on their radar or a priority or anything. So, but the thing is that you can turn what first starts out as a bad exposure opportunity, with a little effort, you might be able to turn it into an appropriate situation, which really is more of a barter. Okay. So if you have, like, say, a blogger that wants to use a piece of artwork you did as their logo. Okay. Well, ask them how much traffic they already get. How many unique visitors a day do they get? Do they sell advertising on their website? What do they charge for that advertising? You can turn that to your advantage, because maybe then what you do is you say, yes, you can use my logo. Okay, that's how much traffic you have. That's a great amount of traffic. So you can use my art as your logo. But not only do you have to give me credit, but I want a permanent running ad on your site in the rotation from my work, and I want a separate blog post where you discuss, this in particular, and maybe you interview me and you mention it. So you can do that. A good friend of mine does illustration regularly for a magazine that doesn't pay her in cash, but pays her in a big ad in the magazine every time she's got illustration. So, of course, she's getting credit for the illustration. She has the right to use it in anything else she does that doesn't conflict with, their publishing endeavor. But she also regularly gets this permanent ad in the magazine that she can track back and knows that she gets customers from that ad. So therefore, that's a barter situation. That's not exposure like we're talking about. So you can turn that nasty exposure into barter. All right, come on. Do you guys
What a
some good
trench
analogy?
coat.
Yeah. It's gotta
You're
be
still out there, but you're not getting arrested.
Yeah.
You know?
Put on a scarf. I know. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
something.
you're a little warmer now. Right. So, but that's where it comes down to, right, reciprocity. So,
Yeah.
right.
And if you're a new artist and you're trying to get your name out there, a good way to do it without giving stuff away for free is if there's a local art fair or new age fair, something that would fit your artwork, would be a good fit. You could talk to the organizers and maybe offer to trade, license some artwork for them to use in their advertising or on their banners or something in exchange for booth space or vendor space.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting something tangible, something that has value for you.
Mm-hmm. Or, I totally agree with you. Or if they're full up on that, a lot of shows always need more people to do a panel or, a talk or something. So if you're somebody that's comfortable with, just blabbing on like how we do on this show, and get a few friends together or something, create your own panel topic, get up there and do that in exchange for, a piece of advertising in the program, or maybe a discount on booth space, or if you can swing it, free booth entirely. I did that a lot.
That's always good.
Panels. Well, another thing when you're assessing if it's of value to you, you need to really, really think about and look at is the time it's going to take you. In your example with the banner ad, it was already an existing piece of work.
Mm-hmm.
With the other example, it was something that you can use elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Time is the most valuable commodity you will ever have. It is not replaceable. So you really need to think, how much time is this going to take up? Also, and you need to factor that into your equation when you're deciding if it's really going to be something you need to do. Because if it's something that's going to take you a month and you're not really getting money for it, or it's not going to pay off for a year, or whatever it is, you still have bills in the meantime. So you really need to take a very good look at how much time it's going to take you and how it's going to benefit you, in comparison too. Because that's one thing that people kind of sometimes they get caught up in the moment and they don't think about it. And then they realize, it's like a 2-month project or something. And then you're like, oh crap.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And get everything laid out to beginning, right? If you're creating something new for an exposure project that you've turned into barter, or that you've decided, okay, this has value to me. I've made that choice for myself. And you're creating a new piece of artwork, for the love of God, get it in writing and treat it like any other commission that you would. Do not go back for countless revisions and become basically a wrist where they're painting through you. Treat it like any other commission project you would have, with all the same terms and standards. And if you don't have a commission policy, get one quick. Google that. Google is your friend. What's that thing I saw on Facebook today? It's like, turns out this being adult thing is just basically Googling how to do stuff.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. And then one of my friends was like, well, what did we do before that? And I was like, called our moms.
Right. Or called information. My aunt would call information, like the information lady. When it was a person, I swear to God, she would call and ask like how to cook a turkey or how to do whatever. And they would tell her. They would tell her.
That's hilarious.
On the phone, just,
well, they were called information.
They were called information. So I did. My Aunt Mary would call and they would tell her how to do.
That's hilarious.
What really gets me is the people that ask like a question on Facebook that they could have easily answered by Google, and it took the same amount of time to answer it on Facebook. And it's like, do you really not value me enough? Like, I'm supposed to do this work for you because you can't Google the thing that you want to look for.
Mm-hmm.
If there was one person in particular, like, I know I could Google this, but I don't feel like it, so just tell me. I'm just like,
okay.
Really?
Yeah, that's when I go to letmegooglethatforyou.com.
Yeah.
And I Google it, and then I post the link, and they get the snarky little response of, there, was that so hard? So letmegooglethatforyou.com. That's how you handle those people.
Yeah,
I had a friend years ago who used to call me up and ask me stuff, and I thought she was genuinely asking me these questions because she thought it was stuff in like my wheelhouse, and like, I just knew it or whatever. And so, but I would be like, oh, I don't know, let me Google that really quick. Cause then at that point I'd be interested and curious myself. And then finally one day when I was busy or whatever, I was just like, I'm just Googling this stuff. You can just Google it too. And she was like, oh, I just like it when you do it. And I was like, wow. Yeah. Needless to say, I'm not really friends with that person anymore because
they don't assign value.
Time is valuable.
And it's another thing with the exposure is, do they value you and your work? Or are they just looking for a free handout? Are they treating you with respect? Are they treating you as a professional? And just because this is a situation where money is an exchange doesn't mean it isn't a business transaction and shouldn't be handled in a business-like way.
Right.
You can't do hug and handshake. Like you said, you can't do that just because it's a different scenario and people are going to try and tell you, oh, well, since this is just blah, 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 we don't need to do this, all above board. Yes, you do.
Well, and ask yourself, right. Maybe it's a cause you really believe in or something, but if it's such kind of a small duct taped together band of people for a cause that there's such a small endeavor that they can't afford to pay you, not out of disrespect, but perhaps consider how together they are to begin with. Is this, little project going to change hands? I've had that happen. There was a show that was a brand new show, and I did some artwork for them for a poster. And I was fine with that because it fit into what I was doing anyway. And it was, okay, I can add this to the schedule to be great. And it sold for me separately from that, but they used it as a poster. And then the next year, the management of it, who I had for the most part enjoyed working with and I thought was very together and organized, was completely different the next year. And everything was a complete fustercluck. And and I had to have some very strained emails where I made sure that they really understood, because they didn't at first, that no, they did not have all these, magical rights to my work to make t-shirts and sell them and stuff that they thought they did. So, that was a problem. It was a really great endeavor to begin with, but it just kind of blew up.
And also make sure if you're working with a nonprofit that they are actually a registered nonprofit. There are several databases you can search, and I actually only work with registered nonprofit organizations because there's a lot of people saying that they're a charity, but they end up being a for-profit organization, or it's all under the table and it's not really, it's just somebody who hoards dogs or, whatever it is. It should registered, and there are so many ways with the internet to fact check that information, and there are a lot of nonprofit organization registry that you can check.
Somebody no, I'm an animal shelter, ma'am. You
just because you have a breeder's license.
This is an episode of Hoarders.
If you own more than 5 dogs, you require like a kenneling or breeder's license, but you can get that with like $1,000 or something.
You? Oh my gosh, that's good to know. I didn't know.
Well, I worked in the veterinary trade for a long time before I was an artist. I probably would have been a veterinarian if I wasn't over-radiated by the X-ray machine. So, I mean, because when you get
that's what's wrong with her, she slyly whispered.
I glow in the dark, I will probably get a brain tumor and die at some point.
Oh, okay, stop. See now, that's too dark.
If you break your leg, they leave the room. They go, hold still, and they leave. Right. Yeah, you don't do that with dogs. You're in the room. And all of my equipment was made for a man, and I was really small, so it was all ill-fitting. Like my thyroid was
all right, Ash.
Yeah, so, my hair started falling out, the whole thing.
Cool.
No, it's not cool. It is not cool. But yeah, that's why I became an artist. I was studying to be a veterinarian. I was a registered CPRT. And
that's why you're a digital artist, because, you're just one cadmium blue brushstroke away from.
Probably. That's why I don't have kids. They'll have antlers. I'm sure of it.
Oh, that would be so cute, though. The hipsters would love that. So.
I know, right?
You'd be so on trend.
Like a bow tie on them, and then they would love that crap.
So a little beard.
Yeah, a little caribou coffee mug.
They'll live in Williamsburg and listen to Matt and Kim. I know. Actually, I like Matt and Kim, so
Yeah.
yeah. Anywho, well, I think we're about wrapping that up. So basically what we were saying is that exposure, no. So you can tell that like I've been binge watching Most Popular Kids in School and repeat. Exposure, no. Barter with reciprocity, yes. Okay. So everybody needs to go watch The Most Popular Girls in School so that you get my dumb references, because I feel so alone in this obsession. It's really depressing. But yeah, so just make sure there's reciprocity. And yes, of course, make the decision for yourself, but really follow your gut, because I always say that you may not always know when something feels right, but you sure as hell know when it feels wrong. Mm-hmm. So if you're feeling
don't let your feelings for that situation override your common sense.
Don't let your dreams, your imagination, your vision of what you hope it's going to be. I've had to talk more friends down off the ledge with things like that, because they were stuck in what they hoped it wanted to be rather than the reality of what it was, which is a great segue.
That's lost chasing.
Right. Go ahead. Say that again.
That is lost chasing. Mm-hmm. And lost chasing is what gamblers do when they're down money. They chase the loss in the hopes of trying to get it back and then get back on top. And that is not a sustainable way to run a business or your life. You can't chase the white whale. It will kill you.
Right. No, and I think that's definitely going to be our upcoming episodes. Might be another 2-parter, but yeah. So on that note, that wraps up our 2 episodes on exposure. Ash will put her trench coat back on, and we'll see you guys next time.